Today, we're going to talk about what happens when our super connected world just stops. We're getting an inside look at a huge emergency communications drill that's being planned for one of Canada's busiest areas. All right, let's get into it. So picture this. It's the scenario we all kind of dread, right? A massive storm rolls in, the power grid gives out, and the cell towers go dark. You reach for your phone to call for help, to check on family, and there's just nothing. Dead air. How do emergency services even communicate? How does anyone know what's going on?
Well, the answer, surprisingly, might not come from a massive tech company or a government agency. Nope. It comes from this almost hidden network of dedicated volunteers. People using technology that, a simple power outage can't just knock offline. They are literally the last line of defense.
So who are these folks? Well, they're amateur radio operators. You might know them as hams, and believe me, they're the absolute backbone of this entire operation. They are getting ready for something called a SET, which stands for Simulated Emergency Test. And this is not just some weekend hobby club getting together. This is a full-scale, high-pressure dress rehearsal for a real-life catastrophe designed to push their skills and their gear to the absolute limit. And the sheer scale of this test is, well, it's mind-boggling. This is not just one little group in one town. We're talking about a coordinated network that stretches across the entire Golden Horseshoe, all the way from Niagara, sweeping through Toronto and up into Durham and Simcoe. You can see here, each of these 9 regions has its own lead operator, a point person responsible for organizing all the local volunteers. It's a seriously impressive command structure. And their mission? Well, on paper it sounds simple, but in practice it's incredibly tough. Can they take one critical piece of information, say a report about a flooded highway or a desperate need for medical supplies, and get it from the middle of a disaster zone all the way to a central command post? And here's the kicker. They have to do it using only radio. No internet, no cell phones. That is the one question this whole exercise is designed to answer.
Okay, so how in the world do you even start to plan something this huge and complex? Let's take a look under the hood and see how this megadrill is put together.
So the planning documents show a really smart step-by-step approach. First things first, you define your playing field, which in this case is the massive Golden Horseshoe region. Then you lock in a date. Next, and this is crucial, you choose your weapons, the specific radio technologies you're going to rely on. And finally, you design your opponent, a totally realistic and severe weather event to throw at your team.
Of course, every big operation needs a headquarters. And since they can't exactly take over the official Provincial Emergency Operations Center, the PEOC, for a drill, they're building their own. Think of this simulated PEOC as the brain of the whole exercise. It's a central hub, staffed by some of the most experienced operators, and it's where every single message from the field is supposed to go.
Now, here's where it gets technically interesting. They made a really key strategic decision. To link up all 9 of those big regions, they are focusing on 2 core, absolutely bomb-proof methods: old-school voice radio and a cool technology called WinLink, which is basically sending email over radio waves. Now, at the same time, the local teams are free to test out other, more experimental digital stuff, but the main event, the big test, is all about proving that the most essential tools work when everything else fails.
To make this feel as real as possible, they've scripted out the entire morning. It starts the night before with simulated severe weather warnings. Then, at 8 a.m. sharp, the test officially kicks off. By 10 a.m., the simulation plunges them into darkness. With power and cell outages, that's when the operators have to start sending real-time reports about all the chaos back to that central command post, all before the test wraps up just a few hours later.
And they aren't just radioing in to say hello. The organizers are throwing a whole bunch of challenges at them. These are called injects. They'll be relaying official-sounding reports about things like airport closures, roads completely washed out, and even handling messages from worried people trying to check on their families. They'll be using standardized emergency forms like the ICS 213 to make sure every detail is passed along perfectly, even under extreme pressure.
And I really want to stress this. This is not just some elaborate game. The motivation driving all of this is rooted in very real, very recent disasters. This entire effort is a direct response to lessons that were learned the hard way.
You see this number? 18 months. For a year and a half,
One of the regions, Simcoe County, has been on a mission, completely rebuilding its emergency management team. They've hired new people, rebuilt their ops center, and run new training after dealing with some tough situations like sheltering wildfire evacuees. In the words of the planners themselves, they are chewing at the bit for a realistic exercise. They are ready.
And here it is. This quote, pulled directly from the planning notes about a real-life ice storm, it just says everything. It talks about considerable pushback from citizens about the lack of information. In a real crisis, even with volunteers doing their best, people felt scared, isolated, and completely in the dark.
And that's really what this is all about, isn't it? It's not about the technology. It's about people. It's about fighting that feeling of fear and uncertainty in a crisis. It's about building a system you can trust, one that guarantees the message will always get through, no matter what. You know, this whole incredible undertaking, it raises a much bigger question. It's not just for the volunteers who are part of it, but really for all of us.
What we're seeing here is this amazing grassroots movement. We've got hundreds of volunteers spread out across dozens and dozens of communities, all united by one single, powerful goal: to be the voice you can hear when everything else has gone silent.
So these volunteers, they're building their network. They're testing it, they're preparing it, so they'll be ready when the call comes. And it kind of leaves us with a pretty important question to think about. They've got their plan to be a voice in the silence. What's yours?